Hey guys, welcome back. It's Tavis Leaf Glover, and today we're going to be learning how to design a book cover and abstract lettering with dynamic symmetry. So welcome back. It's been a long time, almost a year, and as some of you might know, that I finished a book recently, and that's kind of where I was hiding this whole time, trying to finish this book. It's Dynamic Symmetry, the Foundation of Masterful Art. So I just dig really deep into dynamic symmetry and show kind of what the masters knew, the geometry side of it, but I decode it and deconstruct it so visual artists can understand it without heavy mathematical equations and formulas and stuff like that. But that's not what we're going to cover today. So what we're going to be looking at is how I designed the book cover and how I created unique lettering, abstract lettering with the grids, and what inspired me to make it that way. The book that actually inspired me to design it the way I did was Henry Cartier-Bresson's book called The Decisive Moment, and the front cover was designed by, the front cover was designed by a master painter by the name of Matisse. And Matisse did his little paper cutouts and designed the cover front and back with his cutouts. He also did unique handwritten lettering on the front, little cursive down there. So that's what I was going for. I wanted something that had that crafty look to it and artistic, abstract feel to it. He also used green, blue, and black. My cover, you'll notice that I used 4 colors, and I made a hierarchy out of those colors. So the 4 colors that I usually teach to incorporate into your art, which is red, blue, green, and yellow, and then you got neutrals like black and white. So that's what I was going for with the cover, and this is the one that inspired me the most to do it that way. So I know the lettering on the front cover is not very traditional, and you can't really find a font that's like that, and that's exactly what I wanted. If I wanted to use Helvetica and make the front cover look like every other cover and just slap on an image, I could have done that. But I wanted something unique, and I also wanted it to reflect the stuff that I teach, which is how to use dynamic symmetry with your subjects or in your art. So each letter, as we'll see, I'll show you how I did it, but each letter of the book cover is designed within a specific root rectangle. So within the book, I cover 14 rectangles, root rectangles, and the square. So that's kind of what my purpose was for the front cover, which has 15 letters, but the MM, we'll soon see that I used the root 4 to design that in. So let me just show you what I came up with when I designed it, and then I'll go through and show you how I draw them out onto the grids by using the light pad, and then I'll also show you on the computer how you can do it on the computer too. Each subject, no matter if you're a photographer, or painter, or whatever, you need to know what your subject is first off. Mine are letters because I'm designing the lettering for the book cover. So for instance, the Y of dynamic symmetry, let me find it real quick. Okay, so there's 3 Y's in dynamic symmetry, and they're tall and skinny, right? Y is tall and skinny compared to a D or whatever. So that could be considered a figure or a woman posing or a man or whatever. So you want to select a rectangle that is appropriate for that subject. And we also have other longer root rectangles, which is the root 7 and the root 6. Those are both really long rectangles. So I'm going to try and hold this up so you can see it. I'll show you exactly how I do these on the light pad. But this is the grid. You start with the grid. I'm looking up at the monitor just in case you're wondering where I'm looking. You take the grid and then you lay some tracing paper over it, and then you just easily work in the lettering by being inspired by the grid. And you can round your edges, you can lock it exactly into the lines, you can parallel it, you can create arabesques within the design. All that stuff can be created by just slapping it on there. You don't even have to gesture it. The grid will inspire you But if you want to, you can gesture in your design and then refine it to the grid later. I had a picture in my head what I want it to kind of look like, and I knew from having graphic design background that it had to be readable and it had to be resizable. So if you're looking at it from a distance or holding it up close or wherever, you should be able to read it pretty well. Say if you see it on your phone, like if you're shopping in Amazon or whatever and you see it on there and you're like, you kind of want a book cover to jump out at the viewer so they take a second look at it and look through the book perhaps. So the S, we can see the S was a little fatter. S's are a little bit fatter, so I chose the phi rectangle to design the S in. So you can see how I used it, not like this, horizontal, but vertical, which is actually called the phi reciprocal, because if you're reading the measurement, it's actually 0.618 instead of 1.618. But that book covers all that stuff. I don't want to get into all the technical things, but it's pretty interesting if you're into dynamic symmetry. There's so much to learn about it. But so I just put the tracing paper on there, traced it out, and tried to get a unique looking design that's unified with the other designs that I was making. So some edges are curved, some are sharp and pointed, like this M. Yeah, you can kind of see. Plus I'll put the book cover on the screen too so you can get a good look. But you can see it's pointed, and then I rounded some edges and pointed some edges. Gives a nice variety and contrast, and then you can see kind of how it's lined up. So let me jump into the light pad. I've got all the other ones here. Also, if you are trying to develop something, a unique letter, and you want to push past the basic ones, the square, root rectangles 2 through 9, the 5/4, the 4/3 rectangle, the 5 rectangles. If you want to push past all those, you can actually use configured rectangles. And I updated the grid package on my site to reflect the grids that are inside the book. And you can get pretty unique grid designs. Let's see if you see that. But you can get pretty unique grid designs for whatever you're creating. If it's a fine art photo, or if it's a painting or whatever, you can use different grid configurations to design exactly what you want. And you can nail it down to, say this is the ratio on this, it's actually a root 2 configured to have 204 root 2 rectangles in there to give you a configuration that is approximate to a square. So if you have a square canvas or you have a square format camera, if the diagonals of this square don't fit your subject, you can use different root rectangles and reconfigure them to be approximate to the ratio of the square, which is 1. So this ratio is 0.9981, so it's very, very close, and it'll give you the diagonals of the root 2, which will fit your subject, and no one will ever know the difference between those diagonals and the square diagonals, okay, or the stacked root 4 diagonals. So there's all kinds of opportunities, and dynamic symmetry is super flexible. It's just you have to know how to use it in order to take advantage of it. And it requires simple math. Like a 3rd grader can do it. They learn addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. It's super easy, especially when you're relating it to just adding a square to a square, which is ratio 2. So you can tell I'm excited about it, that kind of stuff, because I just keep rambling on about it. But I want to stay focused, and I'm going to show you how I design these letters, and then we'll look on the computer how I arrange them on the book cover and stuff like that. All right, guys, so here we are. We have the square grid, okay, and just a simple piece of tracing paper. It's this Strathmore tracing paper. It can be any tracing paper, but that's the one I used. Okay, so I'm just going to go through and invent an M, the letter M, kind of like I did with the book. It's not going to be exact, but I'm just going to be inspired by the grid and draw out a letter. And keep in mind that I don't want things too thin or too kind of crazy looking if it's going to be on a book cover, because it might not be readable. Also, I wanted to show you this. Let me zoom out just a little. So these are my notes, kind of my thumbnails, what I was doing to develop the book cover. And you can see up here, I started thinking of the lettering, the unique lettering, And this was just kind of boring. I did that in graphic design school. It was just kind of first thing that popped in my mind. But then I started thinking of the grids, how I can incorporate more diagonals, the gamut, and other design techniques within the lettering. Okay, so you can see I'm just trying to work with an arabesque here. Real simple, real stupid, but it's starting the thinking process for the book cover. And down here you can see I'm trying to write out the title with pen and ink and in cursive, just to get an idea of what I want to do. And what I did was I started writing it in pen and ink multiple times to see if I saw one that I liked, and then I switched to pencil because I like the fast look and the feel of pencil and my mechanical pencil that I always draw with. I always draw with this mechanical pencil. It's a Graph Gear 1000 Pentel 0.5. So it retracts when you push this little clip, and it doesn't poke through your pocket or whatever. But that's the one I used, and I like the feel of it. So I ended up liking this last one, so I put a star by it. And later I scanned that in and converted it to black and white and used that for the front cover. Okay, the other thing that I did for the front cover, I adjusted some lights in here so you can maybe see it better. But I used the pencil again on my name, tried my signature, and just kept writing it till I got something that was readable and looked halfway decent. I even tried some cursive. So, you know, you gotta overdo it, right? So I kept going and going and going, and I ended up liking a couple of them, and I scanned those in and converted it to black and white and used that on the front cover. Here's some more. Okay, so the back cover also has my handwriting. I wanted that handcrafted look like the Bresson book, right? And the one that was designed by Matisse. So I wanted to have handwritten words. So I typed up my summary on the computer and then hand wrote it out. I started out really nice and neat, and then I started getting loose and loose and loose. So this part from above was a little too nice and neat, so I rewrote it while I was loose, you know, so it had the same feel as this last paragraph. Scanned it in, converted it to black and white, and designed the back cover too. But doing it this way, it just adds a nice crafted feel to it, which is missing a lot in stuff we buy these days, it seems like. And I wanted it to have that kind of homemade, endearing, authentic feel to it. All right, let's get back to the lettering. And I'm just gonna turn on this light pad. It's the Huion light pad, and it fits 11 by 14 images pretty well. So I'm just gonna put this on. Okay, you might see some flickering because of the light pad, but all right, let me show you how I did this. I'm just gonna create an M and be inspired by the grid. So let me see if you can see this first. Okay. Let me use the thicker end, and maybe you can see that better. All right. So let's just start. Everybody knows what an M looks like. I'm going to do a capital M, and just watch how I do this, and make note that we can round corners and things like that, whatever we want to do, whatever fits our design. So I'm going to go start down here, and I'm just totally inspired by the grid, and I didn't even draw out anything, and I'm just being inspired by the dynamic symmetry grid. Okay. So I can see an M shape in the grid here, and I'm going to show you how I can round these out. And the originals that I did with pencil, because you can, you know, erase and fine tune the curves and things. But I just try to make them soft. This comes down. I'm going to actually go down here, and I'm going to round this one off too, just to this mark, and then let's see, make this a sharp edge. Come over here. It doesn't have to be symmetrical. You can do asymmetry on these grids too. So I'm going to go run up this line, and let's see, I'm going to curve around here. See how I'm touching the edges of the lines, the grid? Okay, and I'm going to curve around And I'm gonna go for some asymmetry, not too wild, but that just means if you split it in half, this side is balanced with this side, but they're organized differently. Okay, symmetrical is exactly like a mirror image on the other side. Sometimes asymmetrical designs are add a little bit more interest. Okay, so I'm going to come up with a sharp corner, and let me round it off over here and come up. Okay, so you can see that's still an M shape. And then I'm going to come down, let me do a sharp edge down here too. And then come over here. Okay, so that's our design. And with the pencil, or when you scan it into the computer, you can use the pen tool and refine it. Let me turn this down so you can see. There you go. So that's our M shape. You can see it pretty well there. Let me take this away. So that's an M, all right? And that's an abstract M, and it's unique, and no one else has designed it that way, just you. And also, let me put this back up. So if you look, whenever we use the grid, it promotes unity and movement, and repetition. So what we're looking at here is we've got this diagonal, it's repeating here, it's repeating here. We've got this diagonal, it's coming down, creating a coincidence with this diagonal here. So we didn't even plan this. All we did was be inspired by the grid, and the grid is promoting all these design techniques, and we didn't even have to try. All we did was like trace it on there, right? So that's the cool thing about using dynamic symmetry in your art. It's promoting design techniques that you might not have thought of before. Okay, so let's grab another one, and then we'll go to the computer. So everybody likes the phi rectangle, right? So let's design something within the phi rectangle. This one, I believe, was the S. Yeah, this one had the S on it. Okay, so I had to adjust that a little bit for you to see. All right, so let's do the same thing. We're going to be inspired by the grid and promote unity and movement and repetition and strength with 90-degree angles and things. We all know what the S looks like. We're going for the capital S. And we're still going to look for softening the edges as well as creating some nice sharp diagonals. All right, so let's just start up here. You can see an S, kind of the point up here. And I'm going to soften that one. Start on this and go around to that line. And then we're going to soften this one and come back here. So I'm going to come down, touch the grid, and then circle back around to this edge. Complete that. And let's go down, let's go sharp here. Come down. And the S will go a little bit longer. Okay, and come back up here. Let's go, we've got round up here, so let's go sharp here. And then I'm going to curve this around. And come down here to this spot. Yeah, we're going to come down and just follow the grid. We're locking it in, guys. Okay, I'm going to curve around and come down to this point. So, there we go. And we've got round up here, so I'm going to go sharp down here. You don't have to do it sharp and round. You can do it all round if you want. I'm just doing it to add a little bit more contrast. Okay, so we were at the bottom of the S. We're gonna come back up. Let's see. Let's try, I'm gonna make it a little bit different. I think I designed it similarly on the book cover, but let me design it a little bit differently by using this corner and round this off and come down to the bottom. And then I'm going to make it sharp. So let's go up here, come down here, And that's sharp, so maybe, let's see, I'll keep that sharp. And then I'm going to round this out. This can actually be, we could probably, well, since it's sharp, let's just keep it like that. And come down here. And I'm going to round over to this spot and round over to here. So that's like a double curve there. And in Photoshop, if you redo it, or if you're using pencil, you can refine it a lot smoother than that. And I'm going to go round over here too. So alright, so that's our S. Pretty easy, guys, right? And it shows you a simple way of how, if we can conceptualize this is our subject and we're just locking it into the grid. And meanwhile, creating unity, movement, rhythm, strength, all the qualities of a great piece of art. All right, so let's look at the repeating diagonals that we got and we didn't even try. We've got a unique looking S for our abstract book cover, and we've also got these repeating diagonals here, 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 here. We've got it here, 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 and down here. We've got nice arabesque movement coming around here. Okay, an arabesque is a curvilinear element that moves the eye around the image, and it adds a nice touch of beauty to the image. So yeah, so that's our design, that's the S, and we'll move into the computer and see what else we can learn today. All right, guys? Okay, everyone, we're here in Photoshop now. This is the S that I scanned in originally for the, actually I took a picture. I took a photo straight down onto the tracing paper and then traced it inside of Photoshop with the pen tool, so you can see what it looks like. This is the phi rectangle. So that's what the S looks like. It's all completed and ready to transfer onto a book cover. And here we have the M, which was also just a photo was taken of the tracings, and then I just traced it with the pen tool. Now we come over to the book cover. We've got all of our letters designed with the root rectangles. Now we want to arrange those letters that were designed with dynamic symmetry on a book cover, but we want to incorporate dynamic symmetry with the book cover too, the size of the book cover. So what is the ratio of the book cover? So knowing the ratio of the book cover will allow us to find a rectangle that will allow us to organize the book cover. The book covers available through Amazon are listed, and there's various sizes, but the one I chose was a 8x10 book cover, and it's an 8x10 book actually. The hardcover is just a little bit bigger, but basically the book cover is an 8x10. So the way we find the ratio of an 8x10 is just, let's go into our calculator. I'll show you how easy this math is, and the math is this easy throughout the whole book, and I explain it super simple. So we take 10, right? That's the longest edge of the book cover, and we divide that by 8, okay? And that gives us a ratio of 1.25. So let me go back in here. If we actually turn this sideways, and we use a square as our measuring tool, right? Let me just use the marquee tool. So if we use a square as a measuring tool, say we're an ancient Egyptian and we don't really know algebra, and all we have is the basic tools, and the square is our fundamental building block. The square is 1, so the leftover, the remainder of this 1.25 ratio is 0.25. See over here is 0.25. And then this is 1. So that's how we read the ratios. So the 5/4 grid can be used, and that's what I used to design the cover. And this is just the major area divisions. And I'll pick out the 5/4 grid. We'll look at the 5/4 grid and the MAD. So this is the one that we want to use. See, the ratio is 1.25. So we can just drag that in there, rotate it onto our book cover, and resize it by holding Shift and click OK. And I'm going to reduce the opacity to about 30. And we'll see as we start introducing our letters, okay, and try and organize them in a way that's locking into the grid, but I also included an arabesque. So let me get rid of these real quick. Now the arabesque is going to create movement and unity within the book design, okay? We used it in the lettering, but we also want to use it in the book design to create eye movement throughout the cover. So I drew just a simple arabesque starting from the upper left corner because most people read from left to right, so they're going to be starting in this corner first, and it's going to lead them down and swoop around, and it's going to keep circling their eye around the book cover, okay? Let me put this on the grid, the 5/4 grid on, keep the arabesque on, and I'll start introducing the letters, and we'll see how they line up and lock in. So this is locking in. Let me zoom in. See how it's not an exact diagonal because it's designed with a different root rectangle, but we're locking it as close as we can onto this grid. We're going to actually see how this comes down and it lines up with the S as well to create a coincidence. So we're locking it in with the grid, and we're also aligning to the arabesque. So let's just keep introducing these letters and see how they lock in. Right here, locking in here, coming down here. Not all going to be perfect, but it's going to be good enough, like throwing hand grenades. You don't have to get it exact, okay? Harold Speed has a quote that talks about dither, and dither is, he refers to it as the little bit of space in an engine that makes it function. Now if it's super perfect and tight, the engine won't function. So a little bit of dither in there is not going to hurt, and it's going to be okay for our designs, all right? We're not perfect, but we want to try and get it as good as we can. So this is paralleling this diagonal. We're locking in on this diagonal here, and we're trying to even the notches here can lock into this horizontal. So any little notch or point or corner or curve, we'll try and lock it in onto our grid, and also give appropriate spacing in between the letters so they have a little bit of room to breathe and we can read it just as well. So let's keep introducing letters, and we've got the M, and you'll notice how I don't have it linear. None of the letters are really linear, but we can still read it. So it's kind of like how we can take the word spaghetti and rearrange a few letters in the middle, but we can still read that it's spaghetti, right? So the letters might be a little bit jumbled, but the viewer can still read what it says. So let's just keep introducing these, locking in on this horizontal, this corner is locking in on this diagonal, and we're trying to lock it into the grid because we can create coincidences across the letters, okay? So this I meets up with the horizontal of this N. This N is just a little bit off to reach this diagonal, but still we're creating a nice linear movement. It doesn't have to be perfect, right? It's able to have some of that dither. So bring down the C here, locking in there and there, dropping the S, and also notice how these are curving around on the arabesque, and that's pretty crucial also. We want to lock in, but we also want to create movement around the lettering. We're aligning the edges to this arabesque. You can see how it's lining on there. It's not perfect, but it's good enough, right? And this S is lining up on this curve. So we drop in the Y, it's locking in here, we're creating a coincidence with the S coming up here. This point's almost locking in there to that diagonal. This one's locking into the vertical here, and we'll keep going. This one also, the symmetry is jumbled more than dynamic, but we can still read it, right? The double M, which was the root 4, we've got it lining up to the arabesque. See this foot here, this foot, and then the middle foot there, and then it curves up, okay? That's how we can design a painting. That's how we can design a fine art photo. We just fine tune and adjust until all the techniques that we can incorporate are unified and gelling kind of together to create a nice piece of work. So there's the E, we're lining up here, locking in right here, okay? You can see how it's locking in here. Drop in the T, we've got the vertical lining up, and the point up here is almost locking in there. The R right here is almost touching right here, so we're real close to locking in right here also, and we're going to drop in the final Y, and we'll see how it locks into that arabesque and almost right here. Then since I redid that grid, it could be off just a touch, but it doesn't matter because it's very, very close, and that's all that matters, right? So after we take off the arabesque and the grid, that's our design right there. And then we finally have the handwritten titles. So we can drop those in. That one's down here. And we'll try and line those up to the grid as well, and we don't want it too close to the edge because we want to keep the edges free of high contrast. So this one, if we bring in a horizontal, okay, let me undo that. But you can see how I already have all these horizontals in here, and you can tell the grid is just off just a little bit because I placed the new one. But this is considered an eye. Okay, let me draw a dot there. That's considered an eye, that intersection point. Any of these places are considered eyes. That over here, that's an eye, okay? Any of these eyes you can generate horizontals from. So to place this handwritten lettering, I created a horizontal here with the eye, and then I lined up the handwritten title there. So that's one way to still use dynamic symmetry to help organize the composition. So we'll go up here and place the other one, which is the Foundation of Masterful Art, the subtitle, and let's see how we line that one up. So it's right dead center of the book cover. So I drew a line there, a guideline, and just basically balanced it between the M and the T, centered it, and made sure this lined up also. So if we draw a horizontal up here, we'll see how the S is lined up with the T and then also the D. Okay, so we're all kind of just lining up and creating a coincidence there. So that's the book cover. Let me take this off and you'll see it one more time and we'll be done. So that's the book cover, and we can see the hidden movement in here created by the arabesque, and we can still read it, and it's unique, it's abstract, and it fits the dynamic symmetry that we're all learning about. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining in today. Really appreciate all your support, and thanks so much for being patient with the videos. And I'm hoping to do at least start with 2 per month. That's my goal. And if you have any suggestions for videos, I kind of want to do a live Q&A type of thing, but I have never done that before, but I'll look into it and see if you guys want to do that too. But leave some comments in the section below if you like this video, or if you want to see something specific related to dynamic symmetry or composition or design techniques or something like that. With its photography, sculpture, painting, anything like that, let me know in the comments below and I'll do my best to help you guys out. Also, stay tuned. I'm waiting for a hardcover book, but I'm going to be doing a giveaway soon. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to do a bunch of packages to give away too. So stay tuned, guys. I really appreciate you guys' support. Seriously, the book is a result of your support, because if I didn't receive any support from anybody, it would not exist. So I really appreciate it. All right, so take care. Bye, guys.